king of sports books comes the king of sports podcasts. Unleashed. Presented by BetMGM. Here's your hosts, Jerry Ferrara and Olivia Harlan Dekker.
The stage is set. Time to look ahead to the wild card rounds. Anything's possible any given Sunday. That's the phrase, right? Well, it's also Saturday or Monday, whenever all these games are. Huge weekend of football ahead of us. And we're so glad you're joining us to look at the action. Jerry Ferrara, welcome back and Happy New Year. What was your New Year's resolution?
My New Year's resolution was to watch more sports, that if you could believe it. Okay.
Whoa.
And maybe not football. Yeah. I miss hockey. I need to get back into, UFC, but either way, the stage is set for football and my bye week is over. I am ready to go. The NFL season might've been 1 week too long because this week was a little bit painful watching some of these games, but you said it perfectly. Let's go.
Real quick, do you have a hockey team?
I do. I'm a diehard Ranger fan. Loved hockey, but they did hurt my feelings in '95 when they had the player lockout. It was the year after the Rangers won the Cup for the first time in 50 years, and they had an older team. So 13-year-old me didn't understand why they locked the players out. I still love hockey.
Yeah, tough to explain that one to a 13-year-old. Jerry, I'm hurting. I am really hurting because I'm 0 for 3 on college football playoff games, betting-wise. I had Michigan covering. They obviously lost to TCU. Georgia covering against Ohio State. They only won by 1 on New Year's Eve. I think that was a 2.5 point spread. And I had TCU covering in the national championship. 13.5 is what I got it at. And if you weren't following, Georgia crushed them 65-7. So I don't know if it's a resolution, but like any degenerate gambler, I can't decide if I keep trying to come back or if I cut my losses and maybe, I don't know. I'm telling you this. I'm not gambling on the wild card round because the weirdest things happen.
True.
If I come back at all, it's gonna be like I'm taking really safe bets. I'm doing teasers like you. I don't know. What do you think I should do? Should I wait till like the divisional round?
Okay, sounds like, first of all, we definitely need to talk to Peter Andrew on the show later because he knows what it's like to kind of be on a little bit of a down streak, but he brought it back. He's really recovered.
Can I just add, too, that Peter Andrew's to blame. We did this together as a team. He wasn't on the last couple episodes because we did our New Year's show and college football show last week. But him and I have been texting and doing this on our own. And in fact, he came to London with his wife. He came to London for New Year's Eve. So we spent New Year's Eve with BetMGM betting expert Peter Andrew. And we had a ton of fun. So we'll talk with Pete at the end of the show.
Yeah, here's what I did something for the first time ever. I'm gonna implore you to maybe not skip the wild card round, only because there is, in my opinion, there's some opportunity. Like this might be your last chance to bet against Skylar Thompson. Is that his name? Whoever
Miami,
the Dolphins are trying out there. This might be your last chance to bet against Tom Brady and the Bucs. Although I don't know if you'd want to do that. So I did something for the first time ever. I have never placed a playoff bet as early as I have. I saw the lines. What was it? We're taping this on a Tuesday. I saw them, I want to say yesterday morning, and the teaser, the 3-team 10-point teaser was screaming at me.
What is it?
I think it was Niners, so you get them down to like I think -1.5.
Like it.
Giants, I think you kind of push them upward to like 14.5, and I'm forgetting the third team, which was another. It might have been the Bills. It was the Bills knocking them. Basically, it's like Bills to win, Niners to win, Giants to cover 14.5. And I did it on a Monday.
Yeah, the spread too for Bills in Miami. That's gonna be torture. I mean, already the Dolphins cannot play up there. They can't play where it's cold. And then, like you said, Skylar Thompson rolling out at quarterback. And even the Tua conversation, I think, is a good one to have. And maybe we wait till next week, but. Of if you're the Dolphins franchise, what do you do with Tua moving forward? Because of course he won you some big games. He got the ball rolling, everything. But I wouldn't say he's like a lock for a big extension or anything. Do you?
No way. Well, first and foremost, who knows? What was 3 concussions, 2, 3 in 2.5 months? Like there is just such a big health concern.
And in college, big injuries in college. I mean,
Yeah, and I'm not going to say I know anything about concussions, and I'm sure like whoever's handling him knows, they'll give the right information, but like is it out of the question that he even plays again? I'm not trying to say his career's over because he can't play, but that's a lot of concussions in a short amount of time.
Right.
Bills right now are minus 10.5. So that's what I meant with the 10-point teaser. So you could lock, and it's gonna get bigger. So I locked them in with my 10-point teaser basically to win. It's basically Bills to win because the 0.5 doesn't matter because there's no ties. So, but I think that might go as high as, I don't know. Does it get to 13? It might get to 13.
You know what I might do? I might wait till we get to Phoenix for the Super Bowl, and we're going to be in the BetMGM like sportsbook, which is,
yes.
Oh my gosh, the pictures of this place, it looks immaculate. It's mountains in the background, the stadium right in the background. So you and I have a really fun Super Bowl trip just in a couple weeks. I can't wait. So I might wait till we're actually there in the sportsbook and maybe just do a ton of Super Bowl props.
Okay, look, I'm with
You're
you
like,
on that.
No, that's horrible.
I might bring a sleeping bag and camp out on the BetMGM set.
Cool,
like the sports. But I just might camp out there. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Plus, it's gonna be nice weather. So,
aren't you looking forward to that? That's gonna be a lot of fun. Well, coming up in this show, we have a great guest joining us. It's the man behind one of the most popular NFL columns, Football Morning in America, FMIA, an outstanding writer and NFL insider. Peter King will be joining us. He's like gold standard in sports journalism. He's at NBC now, but you might have first read Peter during his 29 years at Sports Illustrated, writing the internet's most popular NFL column, Monday Morning Quarterback. Also the author of 5 books in his spare time. So he's been at Sports Illustrated as long as I've been alive. So that makes me feel very weird about his career.
Should make you feel young.
Feels good.
He's been there a long time.
Oh, he's the best. So yeah, we have tons to talk with Peter about Week 18 and looking ahead to Wild Card Round and just overall big stories. He's a big story kind of guy with incredible context in this league.
I want to pick his brain too about, if we have time, I hope we do, just about the quarterback situation. I think this is setting up to be the closest thing to the NFL's had to like an NBA offseason in the sense of what veteran quarterbacks are going to be bounced around. We know the draft, and we can't wait to talk about the Texans situation. But we know the draft, but there's going to be at least 3 quarterbacks that probably go rather early. So I just think it's going to be a crazy year for quarterbacks. Carr is out there floating around. Garoppolo may come back. This just might be moving. What are the Jets going to do? Goff sitting there in Detroit. So I really want to talk to Peter about quarterbacks going forward.
Yeah, you're right. Just there's like big names and new names that all can be shuffled around. It's really exciting, especially I don't want to look too far ahead to the draft, but I mean, Week 18, it's hard not to talk about draft capital. So you're right. And this season really did come down to the final game. So before we talk about playoffs, Jerry, are there any bets that you want to brag about or admit that you had really wrong? I went first, and I haven't talked to you in about 2 weeks. So I'm curious if there's anything I've missed.
As far as like really wrong, I've been pretty solid. Like I said, the teasers have held up. My parlays, I'm like the king of 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5. I really should just be betting these games straight up and not parlaying them because I keep winning 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5. So I could have been making money this whole time, but I just want it. But my parlays are more long shotty. What I enjoyed this week was I really bet the scenarios. And it ended up being okay, but I bet like the Pittsburgh making the playoff scenario, meaning I bet the Steelers. I had to sprinkle a little on the Jets, but I also bet the Bills. So I did okay with that. And I did bet, I just had a feeling the Rams were going to beat the Seahawks. I really did. And man, did they scare the heck out of a lot of people. And I'm not going to lie, and this is probably painful for you, all over the line. I've rode the Lions win streak this entire time, and I'm proud to say it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll get to that one. That was brutal.
Yeah.
And again, I always talk about this because we're in London. When that game got slated to the Sunday night game,
You're
I was like,
gee, I can't watch it.
I can't watch. And the Georgia National Championship game, my alma mater, I have to wake up to that news. So I got to see how horribly I missed on my bet. But then also that I missed this complete butchering job by my Georgia Bulldogs, which would have been really fun to watch in person and all the theatrics of Stetson Bennett's last game and all this. But that's the one thing I hate about living overseas is I miss these night games. And then it's horrible when you have lost money on them. But As we do look now at the playoffs, so Chiefs are the number 1 seed in the AFC, Eagles number 1 seed in the NFC. Do either one of those surprise you?
No, not at all.
Mhm.
Obviously, the Eagles scared everyone for a minute, but that just, you see really how the value what the value Jalen Hurts had. Because Gardner Minshew is like a trendy name. We all love him. Great
Yeah, for a
guy,
couple
great
weeks.
core. Right, but day in, day out, I think now that even though the Giants did test them, even with all their backups, the Giants played them to the
Right.
final whistle. But I think they're going to be back on track. Their biggest issue is getting healthy and whatever rust Hurts has now. And the Chiefs, the Chiefs don't surprise me at all. I really do think when they lose, they fall asleep at the wheel.
Mhm.
That's how good they are.
They're
I think
bored
they
with
know.
being great.
Yeah, they know though it might be a crazy tough road for them. They might have to go through the Bengals and the Bills.
Yeah, and the Bills. Yeah. No, it's going to be good. AFC is going to be really good. But they get to rest up, obviously, and then for the Eagles to rest up, that's huge with Jalen Hurts' injury. But I'm excited to see if Kansas City can work up some more crazy trick plays that look straight out of Ted Lasso or something. I mean, that was pretty fun to watch. That's when you know they're so much better than everyone else because they actually had the balls to do that play. Of course, it was out of hand, but did you see Patrick Mahomes after the game was like, we were just messing around, and Coach Reed said, I like it. Let's do it.
It's pretty insane what we're watching. I don't, the only real equivalent to me is like how a player or a team has changed the game is like sort of what like Steph Curry and the Warriors did with basketball of how they were the first team to really win by shooting with that much volume. It used to be, a shooting team can't win. You have to be able to go in the paint. You have to have a low
Sure.
post presence. They changed that. Mahomes and the Chiefs have just changed everything offensively. And it covers up a lot. Their biggest risk is going to be, can their defense hold up? And
Right.
there's two good quarterbacks who are waiting for them. But he covers up, and that offense covers up so much.
Right. Well, just by the way, as I was looking back at last year's seeding, both conferences' top seeds were upset in the divisional rounds, and both 4 seeds made it all the way to the Super Bowl, Rams and Bengals. So the Rams season is obviously done, like you mentioned, but their final game against Seattle proved to be one of the best of Week 18. Seattle takes them to overtime. With a little help from their friends in Detroit, they make the playoffs. Geno Smith got $1 million bonus. He had a great season. What did he say midseason? He's like, they wrote me off. I didn't write back. Everyone was kind of cheering for Geno.
Great season. And look, I think we could say, I wonder what MGM on let's see if we could find the odds of what the 2 4 seeds would be this year to match. I don't think we're going to get a Bucks Jags Super Bowl.
No,
Florida would
I
go
don't think so.
insane. I don't think we're going to get that. But yeah, for Geno, it's an incredible story, and it hasn't been a roller coaster because that was his high moment of the year, and he was almost out of the league almost. We didn't know if we'd really ever see him as a starter again. And then he definitely hit a low point this year. It got a little rough for the Seahawks. The defense got exposed. The injuries started hitting, and then they pulled it together. That win against Detroit now is the defining win of his career in a way, because that win against Detroit is what basically locked up the playoffs for them, having the tiebreak over them.
Okay, you mentioned the Steelers, and I want to talk about the Steelers and the Lions, 2 teams that missed the playoffs, but really hit a stride at the end of the season. Looking at the Steelers, they started 3-7, finished 6-1. You mentioned you're kind of cheering for them. You can never count out Mike Tomlin. And then the Lions. Oh, the Lions. They started 1-6. They finished 8-2. And Dan Campbell at halftime being very honest, very transparent. I love it. I love the passion, saying we want the Packers to miss the playoffs.
It was awesome. I don't know if I ever I'm sorry to Seattle and Miami. I feel like the rightful heirs of the 7 seed were, and I'm sorry, Packer fan. I feel like it's the Lions and it's the Steelers. I think the playoffs would be significantly better. Maybe this will hold up to be incorrect. And, maybe there'll be a big upset. Maybe Miami will show up. Maybe Seattle will show up. I don't see it. I just would have loved to watch Lions Niners. I think that game would have been awesome. I obviously think San Francisco would have prevailed, but I think it would have been a much better game. And yeah, I would have definitely loved to see Steelers Bills, but it shook out how it shook out. That both teams came on too late, but I want to talk to Peter King specifically about Goff and that situation in Detroit. Cause I think that when I was talking about quarterbacks earlier and how it's going to be an interesting offseason, I think Goff is a big part of the interest. and what they do with him and how they work that out. I think he's earned himself that job. I don't think they should draft a quarterback.
Right. We've talked about it on the show, and I'm with you. I think especially watching how he finished with 15 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, I think Lions have to extend him. I like it. You got to stop getting in Twitter wars over this, though, Jerry. You got to know your audience.
I just I don't know. Yes, I do. I know my audience. I totally get I don't really participate in Twitter that much, and maybe I'm part of the problem because I'm sure there's someone saying that about me, like this Ferrara guy. I won't get off this point. But just acknowledge when what you're saying, when the narrative changes, stop trying to fit all the things into your narrative that's now changing. The strategy of a rookie quarterback contract, it's a great way to build a team, of course, duh. When you hit on Mahomes or Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, sure, but we've seen the opposite of that when it's, no offense, Zach Wilson or, Josh Rosen.
Right.
And, you wasted a high first-round draft pick, so I think the Lions are close. I think they're close, and that division is shaking up good for them.
100%. And that's why we love the NFL, right? Like in the NBA, I don't think you'd ever see that. We got nothing to play for, but we have a ton of pride. We want to finish with a winning record, which is very important. God, that's why you got to love the final day of the NFL season. It was fantastic. But another season ender in Lambeau. This is 3 straight seasons now that Aaron Rodgers has lost the final game of the season in Lambeau, which is just unacceptable. And, after the game, Aaron Rodgers didn't want to do a jersey swap, that whole thing. He walked off with his arm around Randall Cobb, his old buddy.
You know what, Olivia, too? When talking about the Packers, and I mentioned, I bet the path for that game to matter, I had the Lions getting the points. I did initially earlier in the day think, all right, Lions getting the points. I just like that bet. But then once the Seahawks won, to me, that did make I'm not saying I was that smart. I know people have had this take. It did make the Lions, to me, much more of a threat to actually win. I didn't think they would ever pack it in, for lack of a better word, and say, yeah, let's roll over. So that's when I took some Lions money line action. But yeah, he didn't want to do a jersey swap. And they certainly filmed and shot that like it was we were watching the end of a career. I'm sorry. They just shot it that way. Maybe, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers tipped his hand at all. It's certainly, they shot it in a way like you as an audience were saying, this is this guy's last game. The jersey swap thing, I'm not reading too much into that. Maybe he wants to keep his jersey. I don't know. The first person who runs up to you, you have to be like, oh, okay, you asked first. It's an Aaron Rodgers jersey.
Yeah.
Could be his last game in Green Bay.
But it sounded dramatic the way he did it. And Aaron doesn't say anything without thought. And the way that he said, no, I'm going to keep this one. That seemed tactical. Everything about him seems tactical.
Look, is there a world, though, where, I don't know, I think there's a world where maybe the Packers say, yeah, well, let's make something happen and let's move on from this. I don't think it's all just his decision. I think the Packers are finally at the place too where they have to think about their options going forward and how they can make this team better. And he makes a giant sum of money, which is good. He deserves it. So, but yeah, that does kind of lead us, right? I know we've been doing Audible of the Week. He walked off with his arm around his good buddy Randall Cobb. Who knows? Maybe it was Randall Cobb's last game, and that's why he was walking out like that. But this is what he said after the game in our Audible of the Week.
What's going through your mind as you and Randall walk with your arms around each other off the field?
I just love the man. I've always had a tight friendship with him, and just a lot of gratitude in the midst of disappointment. The best part about this game is the relationships that come out of it, because those last longer than the career, and I'm thankful for Randall.
Where do you stand on what you want to do next year?
I mean, it's a little raw right now. It's just a little bit after the game, so want to take the emotion out of it and have the conversations and see where the organization's at and see how I feel after some time has passed.
Is there any sort of timetable with that? Is there like a date where you want to make your decision by? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to hold them hostage. I understand, we're still in January here. March is free agency, so just need some time to, like I said, get the emotion out of it and then figure out what's best. You know, you want to go out winning the Super Bowl, but it's very rare that that actually gets to happen. Don't want to, you know, lose your last game and miss out on playoffs, but this is a great profession and a really tough business, and doesn't always end with rainbows for everybody.
Okay, enough of hearing from us. Let's get to the king of NFL writers, Peter King. Thanks so much for joining us again, Peter. How are you?
Olivia, Jerry, I'm doing great. How about you guys?
We're great. We're kind of pulling our hair out trying to think of all the playoff picture and all the scenarios and what we're all going to do for the wild card weekend. And that's why we've brought in the man who can give us a little bit of clarity. But before we get to all that, we got great news, obviously, this last week on Damar Hamlin. And it led off your column and was written so well, of course. I'm curious, of all the stories that you've covered in your career, none have been quite like this. So what is your takeaway on everything? How the NFL handled it, the players, the fans, the fundraising generosity, everything that encompassed this story?
You know, Olivia, the other day, I was on the phone with one of Damar Hamlin's best friends. It's a guy he played high school football with in Pittsburgh. His name is Rodney Thomas. He's now a safety with the Indianapolis Colts. And at the time I spoke to him, you know, it was still very touch and go with Damar. Nobody was really sure exactly how he was going to be. And I think he was still in the medically induced coma. He was still heavily sedated. But there was a lot of optimism about it, a lot of positive signs. And so I said to Rodney Thomas, we were talking about the fact that by this time he had whatever $6 million for a toy fund for McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, that originally he had hoped to raise $2,500. Mm. And I said, do you know that Tom Brady has donated $10,000 to Damar Hamlin's fund? And Rodney Thomas just said, wait until he hears that. And, you know, I think there is a lot, you know, I was at the game on Sunday and there was an awful lot of, hope. And, you know, as you guys know, we live in a very divisive time in our country. And at that time, one of the things that Sean McDermott told me after the game is that I really hope that a lot of people in our country in positions of power and leadership in our country can see what happens when everybody comes together and everybody is pulling for each other. Mm. And I thought that was a really good thing for him. He had brought it up at his press conference, and so I interviewed him for Football Night in America for NBC, and I asked him about it. And I found myself thinking that I think that's a really important thing. I think that, you know, politically, this is not going to bring anybody together, but I do think in a societal way, it could bring us closer together because we realize what happens if the first emotion, the first movement is going to be love and help and assistance. And I really hope that there's some of that survives this period. I kind of doubt it, but I want to think positive. So those are a few thoughts I had, plus the fact that I just think that there are so many people who, you know, got some inspiration from Damar Hamlin, having nothing to do with the fact that there's probably a pretty good chance that if he wants to, that he can play football again. But it was different than that, really. It's all about how a lot of people came together in hope and feeling a lot better about themselves, and I think sports too. So I think there was a lot of positives that came out of it.
Yeah, as someone who tries to not be on Twitter too much, because we all know what sometimes those roads could lead to, it was really the first time in a long time, or the last time I can remember, where that next morning when I was kind of getting ready, it really was Twitter that was, for the first time, everyone agreeing and united on something and
Yeah.
wanting to help and do everything they can, and everyone in agreement about how, like, no one should play that game. So I'm with you. I did find myself thinking that the next day, I hope this just stays with us and we don't move on so fast as we all do with everything changing, at least with the good parts. Cause I really did feel we were all pretty united for the first time in a long time on just him being well and getting better and, you know, the job everyone did to save his life.
Yeah, I think the other part of this too is that I think we now have some realization that that I was talking to Calais Campbell of the Ravens the other day. He's on the he's a big NFLPA guy, so he's a big union guy, and he was talking about how the union, and I applaud the union for this. They have pushed very, very hard for significant medical advances on the sidelines of games. And I was talking to Tom Mayer, the medical director for the NFLPA, on Saturday night. I was at a hotel in Buffalo, and we were talking a lot about this. And, I don't know how many people realize all of the resources that are available medically on the sidelines of NFL games, to the point that if you're going to get very, very seriously injured, if you're going to be in a life-threatening situation, it sounds stupid, incredible, gratuitous to say, but the best place to be is on a field in an NFL stadium. And again, I know it sounds crazy, but if you've got 3 EMTs, you've got emergency medical technicians there, if you've got some great internists, if you've got some of the best people in the world at performing CPR, if you have actually someone who is available to put a breathing tube down your neck at a moment's notice. I know all of that sounds a little bit graphic, but and this is going to sound almost unfeeling, but it isn't. I think the upset would be if Damar Hamlin died, because the ability to keep someone alive whose heart had stopped, but otherwise an incredibly healthy person. Mike Ryan, who's NBC's medical analyst, sports medicine analyst, he told me that in Florida, he lives down near Jacksonville, and in Jacksonville this year, there was a high school lacrosse player who got hit in the chest with a ball thrown at high speed, and his heart stopped. And so at that moment, someone performed CPR, and this player was back on the field in 5 weeks playing lacrosse.
Wow.
So, and that is at a high school lacrosse game in Florida. So, and I'm not trying to not say that what happened to Damar Hamlin wasn't life and death. It was. But the fact is, there's an awful lot of stories right now about the ability to bring people back like nothing ever happened. So, and we'll see what happens with Damar. I don't know if he's going to play football again. I don't think there would be anything to stop him from doing so. And I'm not trying to minimize what happened, but I just believe the upset would have been if he didn't make it.
You went to the Bills-Patriots game you mentioned. After the game, you got to interview Nyheim Hines after he returned the opening kickoff, 96 yards for a touchdown, then again in the third quarter. You wrote about it so beautifully. I would love if you could kind of recap his relationship with Damar and how that was so poignant at such a great time.
Sometimes, Olivia, you go to these games and, that was like a conference championship game in the number of media, how it was covered, what happened. So my job always, I feel I want to find out things that nobody else knows. That's just my goal. It always has been. And the one thing I found out here that was really almost just touching is Nyheim Hines got traded to the Buffalo Bills from Indianapolis at the trading deadline, which was 2 months ago, 2 months and a week ago. And he didn't know people in Buffalo. And so when he reported to the Bills, and just was shaking hands with people, getting to know Sean McDermott and everybody, he was in the hot tub at the Bills, and this guy walks up to him and he goes, "Hey, I'm DeMar Hamlin. I'm a safety here. Just wanted to say hi and, welcome to the team and all that stuff." And he said, so he was one of the first guys to introduce himself. And then every day he came up to me and he said, "You're going to break one. I can feel it. You are going to break one." And they formed this little thing where he would say to him every week, they'd be preparing for a game. He'd say, "This is the week, bro. This is it. This is it."
Wow.
And so I thought it was really cool that the week before he got hurt, that, that DeMar Hamlin said to him, they had this little saying among them, among the two of them, #free Hines, which is, they said it to each other all the time, like, you are going to score a touchdown this week. So he said it to him before the Cincinnati game. Hey, #free Hines. So obviously he didn't say it to him last week, but he told me that he's lined up to receive the kickoff. And he was thinking basically of two things. One, his buddy DeMar Hamlin. And two, I got to do something. I have to do something. I have to make something happen to make sure that we honor DeMar in an appropriate way. And 14 seconds later, he's got the most famous kick return for touchdown, maybe in NFL history, but certainly in this season and certainly in Buffalo Bills history.
I just got goosebumps. Sorry,
Yeah,
I took them.
yeah. Wow.
Just hearing that,
What a
and then
story.
thinking about and
Yeah.
seeing that moment of just how they reacted, it really makes you think that a writer couldn't write it better in a script to open the game that way. And
Yeah.
I encourage everyone to read that piece if you haven't read it already. And obviously, we're continued, health and getting better for DeMar Hamlin, hopefully, and maybe we'll be talking about him playing again. Gonna move to something that's I won't say it's not as inspiring as that, but the Monday after the NFL season, right? That's always like a day that at least me as a fan, you start to see what really happens with coaches. We already saw what happened with Cliff Kingsbury, despite signing his extension just 10 months ago. I always find that strange. You extend someone and then it doesn't even last more than 12 calendar months.
Well, Jerry, how about this? Hey, Jerry, he not only signed the head coach, he signed the general manager. So, I mean, Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury are both signed for a full 4 more seasons. So, I mean, and look, there's no owner in the NFL who's looking for coins in the couch cushions to make sure the business runs okay. But Michael Bidwill is not independently wealthy. And the Arizona Cardinals are one of those teams. It's a family-run franchise. And so he's got to pay off a couple of people, and who knows what his deal is with them. And, if Cliff Kingsbury gets a job somewhere, at least the money that he gets in his new place will be used to to take away some of the money the Cardinals owe him. But be that as it may, look, that was a bit of a lame brain way to run your business last off season. And, and look, the guy who you really wanted, I'm not sure that Michael Bidwill really believed in Kyler Murray, but in essence, he had to do something with him, especially after he does the coach and general manager. I'm a little dubious about that franchise. I mean, here I'll tell you the amazing thing. How about this? Just imagine this, okay? Exactly 13 months ago, the Arizona Cardinals were 10-2, and they were the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Wow.
Since that moment, they're 5-18.
Mm.
They've got the worst record in the NFC since that moment. And so you ask yourself after a little while, you just ask yourself, you know what? I mean, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened?
Exactly.
And the way they ended last year too, and Kyler Murray playing such a lousy game in the playoff game against the Rams. I mean, I don't know. Hey, look, I'm gonna segue to one thing, and it's a point I made in my column this week. If you think about it, okay, if you're the Baltimore Ravens right now, you have to answer this question. Lamar Jackson, in each of the last 2 years, has missed 5 3/4 games because of injury. He was hurt in the first quarter of 2 games and then also missed 5. So, Lamar Jackson has missed 1/3 of the season in each of the last 2 years. And you have to ask yourself this question. This is a guy who makes his business, his living with his legs, as well as his arm, but he does an awful lot with his legs, okay? And you really, do you want to pay him $45 million a year for the next 5 years? I don't. And if I were the Ravens, quite honestly, if I were Eric DeCosta, the GM, I'd franchise tag him and just say, we hope that you're our quarterback for the next 10 years. We can't do this. We can't sign you. And so now the question is there a team out there, the New York Jets, the Washington Commanders, the Houston Texans, is there a team out there that, if he gets franchised, would pay him a boatload of money, let's say $45 million a year, and would be willing to give up 2 number 1 draft picks for him? That would be one of the riskiest moves in years in the NFL. But honestly, if I were the Ravens, that's probably what I'd do.
Going back to the Cliff Kingsbury part of all this real quick, do you think the pipeline of coaches from college to the NFL is drying up? We saw Matt Rule was fired this season. Now Cliff. I mean, it seems like the game is not translating. Not that Cliff was very successful at the college level anyway.
I'll give you my gut feeling on this. Okay, if you look at where college coaches have bombed out, you will see that either A, they have a very sketchy quarterback situation, or B, their quarterback did not perform consistently very well.
Sure.
I think Cliff Kingsbury had another problem, and that is communicating with players and with his coaches. The one thing that I've heard about Kingsbury is that he's a very, very poor communicator. And, you just can't be that way as a head coach in the NFL. And he had the quarterback he wanted. And it is mind-boggling to me, that in a span of 23 games, that you can lose 18 of them, most of which Kyler Murray played. So I don't think it says that much. I've read all these stories, don't hire a college coach. I don't know. I mean, you go back to Chip Kelly, he didn't work. I get it. I know, but I think a great coach is a great coach. And look, I don't mean this in a negative way either. I'm not sure I'd hire Jim Harbaugh, period, because he's sort of an imperious guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that, especially when times get tough, if they're really going to enjoy hearing a win one for the Gipper speech. So I don't know about that, but I still think Olivia, a smart coach, is a smart coach.
There is something I would love your opinion on, because this, I mentioned before, everyone sort of agreeing on Twitter. This is something that I've found myself like in some fun little battles over, and I'm in agreement with you about the Lamar Jackson thing with the Jets. I'm a Giants fan from New York, so I grew up with a lot of Jets fans. They always think they're one piece away from being really good. This year, they actually might have been true. They might have been a decent quarterback away from being in the playoffs. I look at that Lions situation. I've been saying for a few weeks now, I don't know if you want to give Goff and extend him in $40 million, but to me, just as a fan watching, that team plays hard for him. He has great chemistry with the receivers. Maybe St. Brown would have been a good receiver no matter what, but it just seems to be working. And they have such good draft picks. And some people on Twitter is like, they got to draft a quarterback. To me, I think that they're a lot closer than that and could build further. I guess if you were running Detroit or in Detroit, how do you handle that Goff situation now, having the 6th pick, and I guess it's 16 or 17 overall? I just think that they're real close with those picks now.
Absolutely, unequivocally, I'm not drafting a quarterback. Makes no sense. Last 9 games of this season, Detroit Lions 7-2. Jared Goff 15 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. It's insanity to draft a quarterback. What you do, I think, with Goff is you basically say, listen, we want you. He's got 2 years left on his contract that he signed with the Rams. Okay. He's been wildly, vastly overpaid for the first, 3 years of it. All right. So let's just see right now. First 4 years of it, I think. But let's just see. His cap number in 23 is, I think, 30.7. His cap number in 24 is 31.7. But just look at it this way. Wait until next off season when you have complete knowledge of whether Goff is your quarterback in the future. And this year, continue to build an incredibly strong roster. We're seeing it right now. You saw it with the Jacksonville Jaguars and on defense. You see the pieces in place of a rising, growing team right now. You saw Josh Allen wreck the game the other day. The other Josh Allen, the defensive Josh Allen. And, so just if I were Detroit, you got 2 picks in the top half of the round, or almost, I think that's a top 18 or something. You got 2 picks. Just use that to continually build a great roster. Brad Holmes, the GM, he's a smart guy. I don't think he's going to be tempted to take a quarterback this offseason.
Now let's stick with NFC North quarterbacks for a second, because maybe one that is a bit more controversial. Aaron Rodgers, again, that's my team. I would love to see a good year from Aaron Rodgers. I don't want him to stick around just to stick around now. Do you think that the hype that he left Week 18 with, and the post-game press conference and the keeping his jersey, all of it, do you think it's just to keep us on our toes, or what do you think is next for Aaron Rodgers?
All I know is this, Olivia. Aaron Rodgers loves taking a needle, and he loves to take a needle and stick it in the collective eye socket of the media as a whole. He loves that. And my first thought, when 10 minutes after the game, we've learned 2 things. He told Jamal Williams, I'm not giving you my jersey. But he put his arm around Randall Cobb's shoulder, walking off the field, 9,000 cameras in front of him, snapping every picture, everybody doing video of it.
And he's so smart.
I just said, Aaron Rodgers. And look, I might be wrong because I don't know. It's just what I thought. Aaron Rodgers, maybe he knows what he's going to do. Maybe he doesn't know what he's going to do. But how great is it for him to give off this aura of, I am walking off the field for the last time. And then, now, Olivia, you were about 3 years old when this happened. But in 2008,
Well,
okay, in 2008, remember when Brett Favre
yes.
in March basically retired, even though he really didn't want to? And then I shouldn't say he didn't want to. He didn't know if he wanted to. And then 2 months later, he comes back. And what I will never forget about that, never forget, is how Favre just simply wasn't ready to make a decision, and they made him make one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur are going to make him do that. I think they'll say, we'd like to know by, pick a date, June 15th. That's when we need to know. And that's when we want to know. And look, I might be wrong, but whatever he's going to make next year would make $59 million. It's hard for me to believe, especially with two young receivers who I think he sees a bright future for both of them. You know, he'll be able to come back and ride out on his white horse if he just wants to play one more year. But this just seems a weird year for him to go out on. Right. I don't know, Olivia. And I know Aaron, I talked to him, but I don't know him at all. So that's just my guess.
I don't know if anyone really knows him. He did say that the money doesn't matter and he would walk away. I got to think with the Brett Favre story and the Aaron Rodgers story, the one common denominator is they're the only NFL team with no owner. And maybe when there's not that one person you report to, it gives that player all that much more freedom when you're in this teeny tiny town and you're basically the Pope there. I mean,
but you know what? Hey, Olivia, remember in 2008, Ted Thompson was the potentate. He was making those decisions. Mike McCarthy was a young head coach at the time. And I will never forget, Olivia, I sat in Brett Favre's house in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
No, you did.
Yeah, I did, on the Saturday night before he ended up going back to Green Bay and trying kind of in a nice way to force the issue. And I remember on that Saturday night, his agent, Buzz Cook, was also in the house. It was him, Deanna, his wife, and Buzz Cook and me. And he asked Buzz what he thought, and he goes, "Oh, they'll cave. They'll give in to you." Because Brett wanted to be released and go play for the Vikings. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Peter, what do you think?" And I said, "Hey, I don't know." He said, "All I know is that I was on the phone with Ted Thompson and McCarthy the other day. And I just want you to know that if Ted Thompson releases you, you're going to sign with Minnesota. Ted Thompson will be hung in Ashwaubenon. I mean, he won't be able to show his face in this town. I mean, I'm serious." Oh, and I said, you, if I were you, I would say, okay, which team would I be okay playing for? I may not love it, but which team would I be okay playing for? And then the Jets or the Bucks, and then really play and try to stick it up their rear end. And that's essentially what he ended up doing. He played 1 year with the Jets and then 2 with the Vikings. And for all those people, I remember at the time, oh my God, Favre will never be able to go back in town because he was in the purple and all that stuff. I said, you know what? I remember seeing Jerry Rice at the end, going hat in hand, going to try out for every team he could. Oh my God, he's ruining his legacy. He's this, that, and the other thing. Jerry Rice walks on the field at a 49ers game now, and people genuflect.
Yeah.
They absolutely love him. And it's the same thing with Favre. I always knew, and look, this latest thing, who knows what will happen. But I always knew that Favre would be able to go back and people would love him because of what he accomplished on the field.
I know we got to get you going, Peter. And thank you so much for your time. Last quick thing before you go. is there any team underdog going into this weekend that you see has a chance to maybe pull an upset? I mean, a chance. I'm not saying make a prediction. The best chance.
I don't know what the, and I know I should know the odds being on this podcast, but
that's okay.
I don't know what they are. Like, look, I don't think that the Ravens, even with Lamar, who certainly won't be 100%, I don't see the Ravens going into Cincinnati and winning that game. I can definitely see Dallas going in and winning in Tampa, but I think that's really a coin flip because the Cowboys, every other week in the last month, they have stunk it up. So you tell me who's going to show up Monday night in Tampa. I kind of like the Jaguars to beat the Chargers, but is that really an upset? I don't know.
Good point.
And, the one team, even though it seems odd to say this, Seattle knows the 49ers so well. And they've played them every 10 minutes, it seems. You're always looking up, and it seems like once a month, Seattle and the Niners are playing. And they've got this history. And Pete Carroll knows that franchise. I mean, I don't think Seattle's going to win that game. But that is the game of every game this weekend that probably intrigues me the most. And don't you find it weird, honestly, how the NFL scheduled these games?
It's the first game. That Seahawks-Niners is the first one up.
In Santa Clara, California, it'll be on a muddy track probably with all the rain on the West Coast right now. And the 49ers, to me, I mean, if you ask me right now, give me your power rankings, top two teams in the league to me are the 49ers and the Bengals. And the 49ers are a 2 seed, and they've got the first game of the weekend at 4:30 on Saturday afternoon. This is the game that's regularly reserved for Jacksonville and Houston. I mean, and it's the 49ers. And I kept thinking to myself, this is such a weird thing to me. And then how about on Sunday, the first game is the Bills? They're like the new America's team with DeMar Hamlin. And I don't know. The scheduling this week, and first of all, there's no game that is absolutely must see. There just isn't. But I think the whole thing it's going to be an odd weekend. Something will happen. 2 or 3 good things will happen to make it fun. But it's just an odd collection to me of 6 games where the only real 35 million rating, 35 million people watching the game, I think, is Dallas and Tampa. Because look, if the Dallas Cowboys were on TV painting a house, it'd get a crowd, it'd get an audience of 20 million. So they're going to get a huge number for that game. Plus, it could be Brady's last game. But even that, the Cowboys have been crappy, and the Bucks every other week just lay a gigantic egg. I don't know. I mean, who knows? It could be a fantastic game, but that's probably the game of the weekend, and we're going to have to wait a long time for it.
Peter King, thank you so much. We have taken up too much of your time. You have stories galore, and we'd love to get you back on here because we just barely scratched the surface. Anytime,
Olivia. Really appreciate it. Good being on with you, Jerry.
Thank you, guys.
Great having you, Peter. Thank you again.
Well, I've been very busy doing my homework, Jerry. I have been binging Entourage. I finished season 5 finally and started season 6. I'm really in the weeds. When I think about the hours I've spent watching this show, it has been such a treat. Like I've told you before, I'm so late to the party. One thing that you told me was going to happen in season 6 is all of a sudden you start morphing into the Jerry that looks more like I see now. You get really skinny in episode 1 of season 6.
Yeah, that's the thing and that's how HBO kind of moved back then. I think they still move like that similarly. There was always a pretty good break in between seasons, right? sometimes upward of like 8 months, depending on how long things took or got pushed back. So think about what you could do in 8 minutes. So toward the end of season 5, I started to get on my little fitness journey, and because I had just turned 30 years old, I wanted to just really start to feel better. And then I had 8 months off and didn't work a ton in those 8 months. And yeah, I think I lost like 45 pounds.
45 pounds. And is it going to keep falling off every episode?
Yes. I mean, by season 7, they start making skinny jokes about me.
Oh, okay. So far, no one's addressed it. Like, it's not in the dialogue at all.
Yeah, it's not. Again, I think at this point, I think maybe you're early on season 6. I think I was maybe like 25 down. So by the end of season 6, I think I lose like 45, and then coming back to season 7, it was a clean 60. Season 7, I think I was, or maybe it's 8. I don't even remember. I was like 144 pounds.
A character on the show I'm loving at this stage of the show is your mom. And I'm curious how much of the hometown that you guys go back to, the neighborhood you guys are in, and your moms, Vince's mom and your mom, who are really great characters, great color. I'm curious how similar that is to where you actually grew up in the situation. Like, is that how your mom talks?
So I remember back then the actress Camille Savola, who was amazing, who played my mom. She did recently, or maybe within the last few years. I know she passed away, unfortunately. But she was like on Broadway. She was like a real deal baller actress. I do remember my mom wanted to play the part of my mom.
No.
And this was like the joke. So I didn't actually, like, she didn't audition, but I would pretend, like, we'd practice it. And let's just say, I don't think I get my acting ability from my mom. Let's just say that. So my mom, if you ask her about that, she jokingly doesn't think the performance is authentic at all and thinks she would have been way better. Doug did a really good job, Doug Ellen, capturing, I grew up in Brooklyn, but that part of Queens where, it was a real community. You just walk in each other's houses and, my friends' parents were allowed to like discipline me if they caught me acting up when I was a kid. Like the whole neighborhood really kept an eye out on each other. So very, very close to what I grew up like.
Now, a part of this whole thing when you guys go back to New York and your home is a phone sex scene, which your mom interrupts and yells. And I was just thinking, my God, to see that written and read it in the table read, to then rehearse it and do the scene, and then have your parents watch it. I mean, walk me through this, because that's very awkward, I imagine.
Listen, I think in total with Entourage, I had like 2 or 3 sort of either like sex scenes or just kind of like hookup scenes. First of all, the worst. They are the worst. I'm sorry, whatever you think out there listening, like that must be cool. It is not cool. It's not fun. It's not like, it's stressful, and you just want it to be over quickly. And luckily for me, that was not so, like, you see the amount of stuff Adrian would have to do, played Vince versus me. I didn't really have to worry. But of course, you start getting in more shape, and all of a sudden you're a love interest, and now you have to do that stuff more. It always was rough watching all those scenes at the premiere with our families. Fortunately, the one you're talking about, the phone call one, like, yeah, it wasn't my favorite, but at least it was on the phone. No one else was there. I didn't have to worry about how my breath smelled or anything like that. But terrifying. Like, if I never had to do one of those scenes for the rest of my career, I would be like, great.
Yeah.
Sign me up. What do I have to do to not do that again?
When you get married, do you and your spouse have rules about that?
My wife is an actress as well. So, I mean, there's no rules, like, but there is obviously the rule is the same way you'd be with your other co-star. Like, it's just going to be as professional as possible. Again, there's dozens and dozens of people around watching. Yeah. So like, I don't think we have rules, but I guess the rule would be just like, don't hide it. Like, if you have to go do a scene like that, don't leave that part out of the description. Like, hey, it's this cool movie where I'm a cop and I jump over a car and I shoot people. And there's this like giant, like crazy sex scene I'm into. Don't leave that part out, I would say, is the rule. Don't surprise them with that.
I've always wondered that about acting, and if it's your spouse. And that actually comes up in Entourage with Ari and his wife when she goes back to do What Days of Our Lives or something. Okay, last question at Where I'm At. You guys go on Leno, or Vince goes on Leno, and you guys all go there. How do you do that? Because that's actually in a couple movies, whether it's Fallon or whoever, like these guys who host these late night talk shows, they clearly are open to doing this. And I'm
Yeah.
always curious, do they do it like right before their actual taping of their show so that the audience is there? How do you do that?
Yeah, so the first time we ever really did it, and in my opinion, it was like, I think of the early episodes, it was the episode that I think everyone figured out this is what the show is. If you remember in season 1, we all go on, Vince goes on the Jimmy Kimmel show.
Right.
This
yeah.
was like season 1 of Jimmy Kimmel. He's now been on for like 25 years or whatever. This was so early on. And with that, we filmed right before. And I think similar with Leno, yeah, you either go, because they tape those shows at 3:00 in the afternoon, you know, and the audience is in. So I either think I think it was probably after their show because they want to keep the studio audience there as well. And then you just run in and do your thing. Your goal with that is to be at least least intrusive as possible.
Yep. Yeah.
So, because everyone's there working. Like, imagine if someone came right now, be like, "Hey, we're going to do this other show on your podcast real quick. Give me your mics. We'll be done in a half hour." It's like, all right. So, but yeah, Jay was great that day, and he was super down to play around and have fun with it. And yeah, we all just hung out at the Tonight Show for 2 hours.
Oh, I love it. And I love the evolution of Turtle. It's such a joy to watch. And I watch with my baby and I'm like, look, there's Uncle Jerry having phone
Uncle
sex.
Jerry. Yeah, you got some more fun stuff coming up to with season 6 in the category of what you were talking about, like significant other having to do some racy scenes. That comes up more. I don't think you've gotten to that yet.
Oh, yikes. So stay tuned.
The Lions.
All right, now that the regular season is over, it's on to the playoffs, which is going to make this part of the show even more of my favorite part because it's the playoffs. And let's keep making money and let's bring in our odds-on favorite, BetMGM betting analyst Peter Andrew. First time I'm talking to you in 2023. Happy New Year, buddy. How has 2023 been treating you so far, betting-wise?
Yeah, so NFL has been great so far. I had a great last week. I cashed in on a couple big props. Week 18 is the big prop week because everybody's trying to hit that number, get that extra incentive and that bonus. And I think specifically I got lucky with the Dolphins covering because of that late safety. And then I had Niners big. They blew out, Cardinals out of the water. So it was good there. But to wrap up 2022, the night of, I was with our friend Olivia here in London on New Year's Eve, and I think we just lost every single college bet. So college semifinals, national championship on Monday, we lost them all. So we're in a dark spot right now.
Seems like I saved a little bit of money by not coming on that trip. Between airfare and what I would have lost betting with you and Peter, I feel like I saved myself a little money not being in London for New Year's.
And the drink tab.
I would have definitely not paid for. I would have tried to get out of that one.
We're not far away from Arizona, though, so don't count yourself out yet. There's still money to be lost or made in a couple weeks.
I know. We need you to get hot. All right. Before we get into it, too, I just want to point out you are wearing a very fancy Doral hat for our golfers out there. You played Doral, right?
Yep.
Which is is a dream course. I've been dying to play Doral. Also, I will point out golf, really fun sport to bet on. I had some golf bets over the weekend that I lost. We won't talk about that. How'd you play at Doral real quick?
So I shot relative 94 there from the Blues, which is about 6,800 yards. It's a tough course. And on your golf point of betting, we got some fun stuff in 2023 from the golf angle. So lots to talk about as the season starts to kick off. As we get towards the players in March, we're going to have some really cool stuff for you guys on BetMGM. Yeah, golf. I'm telling you, if you haven't even just start looking. I know it's early in the golf season now. Just start taking a look because as you get closer to the majors, it gets really fun. But we're gonna go into now something we know is proven and true to be fun, which is betting on the NFL playoffs in the divisional round. So, Peter Andrew, what are you thinking for this divisional round week? Yeah, so I got 3 bets. I'll start with the simplest one first. Bengals -6.5. I think Bengals are peaking at the right time. They look amazing. And you got a Ravens team that's really interesting right now. Lamar should be back this weekend, Sunday Night Football, but he's coming back missing over a month. A lot of questions. Dobbins' health, Mark Andrews, a lot of guys on the defensive side. I just don't know where we're going to get out of them. So I'm taking the points, 6.5 Bengals. I think they're in cruise control this first game. To me, they're one of the 4 best teams probably in the NFL. So I like them there to cover. I've got 4 units, so $40 to win $76 there to cover that spread. That's first off. I don't know, Jerry, what are you thinking? Where's your head at there? As a an Ohio bettor now that we're live in BetMGM in
Oh, and let me tell you, BetMGM, you got Ohio. I was at a poker game this week. A lot of bad Browns takes. I think a lot of Browns fans like the Browns are beating the Steelers this week when we're betting them on BetMGM while we were playing poker. I'm like, that's a terrible bet. The Browns are not beating the Steelers. But I'm with you. I think Cincinnati. I always get nervous with Harbaugh as a coach because he's so gritty and that team is gritty. But I just don't think you can bet on Baltimore. So if you are going to put some action on the game, I just think it has to sway in the Bengals way. And I think that I would love it a lot more at 6, but 6.5, I still think 7 and over is a good number. So I'm with you on that. And 40 to win 76 is sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's 4 units there. You got 6 left.
Cool. So little home cooking for each of us, for me and for you here. First, I'll start with me. Niners, 4:30 game Eastern on Saturday against the Seahawks, against your Seahawks. Niners are one of those teams. I don't even want to say they're peaking right now. They've won 10 in a row. They've been peaking. It doesn't matter. Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Jimmy G. I mean, the team is just so well rounded. I think what you're seeing though with Brock Purdy, he's developed really good kind of 1 and 2 options with McCaffrey and Kittle. Kittle has played probably as good as Travis Kelce these last 4 or 5 games with Purdy, behind center. So I've got both of them to score an anytime touchdown. So both McCaffrey, Kittle. I got Niners on an alt spread -6.5 just to buy myself a couple of points there from the 10 that it currently is. And then over 42.5 points. I mean, you saw what the Niners did to the Cardinals last week. 38 points, I think, within 3 quarters. Then they brought in all their backups. That offense is legit. Obviously, that defense is legit. Defensive Player of the Year, Nick Bosa. I think it's been taken down on most books now because it's pretty much a lock. You got a team that just can do everything right. I think they come through this round looking really good, and they'll be focused on divisional round pretty shortly.
And a couple of things, and maybe this is, look, I'm sorry, no one was on Seattle more than I have been this year. What do you think that spread is? Right now, you have the alt spread, but right now it's Niners -9.5. What do you think that spread is if it was the Lions rolling into town? I have it at like 6.5.
Yeah. I think probably for Lions and Packers, you're probably looking at something similar around there.
Yeah.
But with the Hawks where they're at, it's probably a 3-point difference.
And last thing on your Kittle anytime TD, the one, like, say what you want about Brock Purdy, if the Niners win the Super Bowl, Brock Purdy is undefeated and a Super Bowl champion. That would be unprecedented to say. He would be an undefeated Super Bowl champion rookie quarterback. But also the one thing he has done that for some reason Jimmy G was not able to do, and maybe it's not his fault, he unlocked Kittle. Whatever it was, or maybe Kittle got healthy at the right time, but whatever it is, say what you want about Brock Purdy. He knows he has instant chemistry with George Kittle. And maybe that's not that hard because Kittle is great. So I like that bet. So that's what, 30 to win 188?
30 to win 188. 3 units there. Yep.
Okay, love it. And you got 3 remaining.
Yep. So a little bit of a dog parlay here. 2 teams that I think very well could win this weekend. Jags at home against the Chargers. And then your New York Football Giants going into Minnesota. I am not buying this Minnesota team right now. They are the worst defense in the league. Giants are kind of clicking at the right time outside of just Daniel Jones and Saquon, Slayton, Richie James Jr., Hodgins. I think, they are not 1A wide receivers, but they're all finding ways to win and finding ways to contribute into their offense. I think they're going to put up points, and I think Vikings are going to have to put up 25 to 30 points for this to be a game. It's probably a close one. I wouldn't say the Giants are going to blow them out, or I don't think the Vikings can either. But I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter and who just makes that last play to win the game. As it goes for the Jags is, you're finally seeing a college playoff Trevor Lawrence. He is a top 5, top 7 quarterback this year, just performance metrics. He's played really well. He's running the ball. I think his one fault is probably he's just got to keep the ball and not fumble it. I think he has 9 fumbles this year, which is concerning. But a Chargers team that seems very inconsistent. Some weeks they look like they can put up 35 at will, and oftentimes they're putting up 2 touchdowns. So I like Jags at home. I think this is a really important game for them. Probably their first home playoff game in probably 5-6 years since they lost to the Pats.
Mark Brunell. I think Blake Bortles had a home playoff game, right?
Yeah, I think it's that Bortles right before they lost to the Pats, and then it's the AFC Championship. But I think it's an important game for them, and And the Chargers just are not who we thought they were probably early in the season when all we were doing was bragging about the AFC West.
So, and Olivia, jump in. Yeah, go ahead. Get in, Olivia.
Well, I was curious what you were going to say about Chargers Jags, because this one I could see going either way. I mean, Jags, such a good story, right? On the rise. Great for Doug Peterson after all the drama, all the turmoil. They finished on a 5-game win streak. Defense, much better. Chargers make me a little bit nervous with, playing their starters in that final game where it didn't feel like they had to as long as they did. I think that was a little controversial. And I mean, Jacksonville, I feel like has kind of played it smart, winning the AFC South and invested in the right positions, like their receiving core, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. They made really smart offseason moves. And I just can't believe we're talking about Jacksonville right now,
Listen, to further that point, Olivia, too, I was going to say with the Jags, I'm not getting fooled by the fact that they almost lost to Dobbs and the Titans, because to me, in a win and you're in game, Vrabel's one of the few coaches I wouldn't want to see in that scenario. And I just think I think Vrabel as a coach and how he talks to that team gets them. You have to kill them to win. And I think that's what the Jaguars did. They won. That is a tough game to win because of the coach, because of those players. So I don't sleep on that win, even though they escaped with a win. That's not the right word. I think you have to kill the Titans to end their season. So yeah. I feel good about the Jags too. I don't like that the Giants are now like a thing and people are talking. Don't sleep on Kenny Galladay. Caught a late touchdown in that game. Nothing would be more Dable-ish than if he just put Kenny Galladay on the bench because he had the wrong attitude and now he's going to unleash him in the playoffs. That's my unleashed. Unleash Kenny Galladay, please. $18 million a year. Unleash him.
I saw a funny tweet. He needed, I think, 75 more catches to get his bonus.
That's brilliant.
But yeah, I hear you, and I think the Giants are a hot pick this week because where they've kind of gone and starters. I mean, no starters played basically the other day, and they looked really good versus an Eagles team that was playing everybody. But I think it's more about the Vikings. I think they just cannot stop a nosebleed on defense. I mean, we've seen it multiple times where they're giving up 30+ points. Giants are clicking at the right time. And back just last point on the Jags, I think beating the Titans is a playoff type win where it's a gritty win. They played awful in the first half, the Jags, but their defense is no joke. And they kept Titans pretty in check in the second half, and that's ultimately how they were able to win. So you're starting to see that playoff football week before this started, and I think they hopefully continue that going into this week.
Did we give the odds on that? You have that 3 units. That's what, 30 to win 138, right?
Yeah, sorry. So 30 to win 138 there. So a nice little hefty payout. Those both technically underdogs. I think the Jags are probably minus 105. It's basically a pick 'em right now. And the Giants being +3, it's a decent +1 and change. So 30 to win 138. There's got to be some dogs winning somewhere, and I don't see it in these massive spread games. I don't see the Dolphins coming close to the Bills. Don't see the Seahawks coming close to the Niners. It just a lot of question marks around teams that probably aren't built for the playoffs.
Do you see it with our one playoff home dog? Because I might see a little something there. Our one playoff home dog, Tampa Bay. I'm gonna have a little sprinkle, on Tampa Bay, just maybe to make that game a little more interesting than it might be.
Yeah. I think Dallas is probably on the downfall at the wrong time. So I like Tampa there. That was one I was considering putting in the picks. Dallas looks strange right now, but then again, so does Tampa. I mean, that Dallas could win by 40. Tampa could win by 10.
Tampa's the strangest. I think Tampa is the strangest, like relatively good team or playoff team, I should say. There's a lot of stranger teams at the bottom that could beat anyone. Yeah. All right. Well, Olivia, anything else on this play? I think you got a good card, Pete. I might emulate a lot from this card. I want to wish everyone good luck in the divisional round. It's time to play. Like, grow your playoff beard, do your playoff hair, get your seat, whatever you got to wear, whatever you do that's, a little superstitious. It's time for such superstitions.
Do you have a specific playoff jersey regardless you're rocking it?
I am so weird about this. I do not rock my team's color and logos on game day. It's never if I wear a Giants shirt, they lose. If I wear a Knicks shirt, they lose. So I actually have worn opposite, like I swear, more with basketball, but like I've worn Eagles socks when the Giants are playing the Eagle. Like I don't, something weird happens when I rock my team colors. It does not work out for me.
Will you, assume Niners make the Super Bowl, will you rock Niner red for me?
No, absolutely not.
Fair enough.
I mean, you don't need, like,
red
why do you
because
need it?
they'll be playing the Chiefs again, so I'll wear some red.
That's I think that's the matchup. I don't think anybody's beating the Chiefs. So
I like your card. Thanks for 2023. Now let's get off on the right foot here. Now's where it counts. So thank you, Peter, Andrew, and Olivia. I think that's going to do it for us on this amazing divisional round that we have going in. Good luck to you. Just look at the divisional round. I'm not saying you have to go in. I know you said you might wait for the Super Bowl, but just peruse, give it a look, and then we'll get us ready for the Super Bowl.
The one that has my attention right now after we've talked more about it is Bills Dolphins. And Peter, just to catch you up earlier, Jerry was saying take it now before the number goes up. I think right now it's at 10, taking the Bills to cover.
Yeah.
It is now 10.5.
10.5.
And there's what, a 10% chance that Tua starts. If it's Skylar Thompson or Teddy Two Gloves, they got no shot.
Okay. All right. See, I'm back in already. I thought I was going to
She's back in.
It's like losing.
I know. And also, I think everyone else is back in. And don't forget to subscribe to the BetMGM Unleashed podcast YouTube page, where you could see our lovely mugs and watch this all happen in front of you in visual form. We are visual people at times. I don't even know what to do with myself that the playoffs are here. Week 18, too many weeks. So let's get to the good stuff. Thank you everyone for listening. Shout outs to our other podcast guest who has been here with you, Olivia. Best guest we've ever had.
I was going to say, this is one of those times, and I think a lot of people with kids can understand, where you're just trying to make it work. And I have an 8-month-old dictator who's just kind of messing up our whole show right now. So if you are watching, you've probably noticed me looking down at the floor and trying to pull things out of his hands the whole time. But yeah, my little baby is joining us, a live studio audience.
I thought it was an amazing performance. And hopefully you'll all have an amazing performance this weekend. Good luck, everybody, and we will catch you next week.